Thank you for coming to tonight's screening of My Friends, the Comedians. Please ensure that you have your cell phone silenced. Enjoy the show.
Hello, fellow joke enthusiasts, comedy connoisseurs, and champions of chuckle. Welcome back to the show. Oh, wait, it's the first episode of the show. And if you're new here, because you all are, my name is Jacob Marscola, and this is My Friends, the Comedians, a podcast where I sit down with a friend and discuss the mysterious, delirious, and unserious realm of comedy. Sitting across from me is a friend of mine who just so happens to be a comedian. He does a lot in improv comedy. I've been doing improv for as long as he has because we've been doing it together, been in the same club, and he's very, very funny. Welcome my first guest, Owen Hewitt.
I'm so glad to be here. I can't believe you memorized that whole thing.
I know, and I didn't have the phone in front of me.
Read off the dome the whole time.
Definitely off the dome. This is what we do. It's improv.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Except for we did earlier say you had memorized it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I had memorized it. But improv is all about memorization.
Right.
Memorizing the lines.
Memorization is a really useful skill for improv.
Absolutely, yeah. Welcome to the show. I hope you feel you have this prestigious honor of being the first guest on this.
Yeah. I'm honored.
It's a royal.
Can I swear?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You know what's really fun is I was thinking about that when I was like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast, and like one semester had a lot of swearing, and I wasn't like, oh, that's, I was okay with that, but I was also like, this is going to be less laughing at things and more like talking about things. So I was like, what if we implement the one good, not the one good fuck rule, but like, you know how like in improv or like in comedy and stuff?
I mean, yeah, but like, I don't know. I use curse words as filler words.
I think
it's a bad habit.
I think it's I don't know. I think sometimes it's more tasteful to do that than people let it on to be.
Well, I think it conveys that you're passionate about something.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather if I'm going on a long ramble, like I'd rather be like, and then I fucking like, I don't know, rather than like, I guess, you know, if you take the derivative. No, I would rather it be like.
And then if you fucking take the derivative.
If you fucking take the derivative and then you divide the shit.
Like, and you're like, shit, I did it.
Yeah.
And it does feel good.
Yeah.
I do think just from like coming from a family that was like, hey, we don't curse very often. I have the apprehension, but I'm starting to learn curse words are more useful than I think people let it on.
They're extremely useful.
They're extremely
they have
useful.
A lot of different use cases.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's so funny. Sorry, I'm going to derail your
Go ahead.
It's so funny to be introduced as a comedian. Isn't
that funny? You know the thing that you just told me it's funny?
Yeah.
Sorry, continue with the thought because I think I know exactly what you're
No,
gonna say.
I was just saying, like, it's such a it's not a passive part of my life. Like I don't consider it to be a passive part of my life, but like it's not, you know, if I'm describing myself, it's not the first word I insert.
Yeah.
But like it kind of is true. Like I've been doing improv comedy for like 3 full years now.
3 full years.
So like, yeah, guilty as charged, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know another thing, and before we'll get into your journey and stuff, but this is a fun little intro. But also like when I got into comedy a lot, that was college. College is when I was getting into comedy. I don't know why. Well, I sort of know, but like comedian, I think most people first thought is stand-up comedy.
Yeah,
which is not to say that like, oh, improv comedians are discriminated against. It's just that's like, it fits that more.
Yeah,
improv is more like that's the performer.
Well, I think part of that too is that stand-up comedy is such a much like it's more consumed than improv.
Yeah, that
right?
might be it. Yeah,
and part of that is because stand-up comedy is a lot of the time more consumable than improv, right? Like
yes, it's less scary.
A lot of like, you know, I have members of my family. My sisters hate. Like I've never like I think I showed them some stuff freshman year that we have it up on the YouTube channel, and they like one of my sisters was like, "This makes my skin crawl. Like I can't watch this."
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's just it's interesting. The sort of like improv stand-up divide that exists.
And like I could be wrong. I didn't do research. I don't, as much as I love improv, I don't know like the history of improv very well. I have a book about history of improv, and I had yet to start reading it because I don't like books. But it does seem
classic Jacob.
Classic me. I get a book just for my coffee table, and that's the kind of coffee. You know what? Sorry, I'm derailing again. Like that's like my personality. If someone's personality is a coffee table with a book on it, it's Jacob's like improv book, and it's like, have you read that? No,
No,
absolutely not. What's your coffee table book?
That's a great question.
I like this question.
This is a good question.
I'm gonna do this every episode.
I mean, God, if I'm being brutally honest with myself, it's probably like because I have. This is a story.
Mhm.
As a kid, you don't have a great concept that a book is a coffee table book.
Yeah.
Right?
You're like, oh, you
books,
read that.
Books are just books. And so as a kid, I remember all the time, like I think one year, like, because they sell stuff to stupid kids at like scholastic book fairs across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I got one of those kind of books that was like a 100 greatest football games or something like that. And so I ended up like, it was like a cherished possession for me. And like for the next 8 birthdays, I got, big football books with big glossy pictures that had accounts of games from before I was born.
Do you think that's your coffee table book?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
it's
like fun stat books.
not even fun stat books, but just like
fun fact books about sports.
Yeah, like I can think, like, I have them on my shelf, like straight up. They're down in a coffee
That's
table.
also, I think that also does fit you. Like I'm trying to think. You are. And not that you necessarily have the demeanor of him, but to me, just because you know so much about it, you're like the Sheldon Cooper of sports facts.
That was incredibly hurtful. Bazinga.
You would start a show that's, instead of Big Bang Theory, it's Big Ball Theory.
Oh no!
Big Ball.
We've got the title of the episode.
Big Ball Theory. Oh my god!
I don't know if you're titling episodes.
I don't think I was. I like that a lot though.
Big Ball Theory.
Big
is
Ball.
good.
Big Ball Theory with Owen Hewitt.
Oh, I wish you hadn't said. I wish those words hadn't come out of your mouth just now.
In only, but I say that in only the way of like, I feel like I could go to you and be like, what about this? There was a guy that I went to high school that in only this way you remind me of him, because it's like he could, his big thing though, I don't know if you have, his big thing was like, he literally every Super Bowl knows everything about every Super Bowl.
So this is a really interesting phenomena that I run into sometimes, is that like my family says this to me all the time. And I think it was more like it maybe in middle school and high school, where they're like, you can't remember like how to do a math problem, but you can remember how many points per game Shane Battier scored in 2005.
How many?
Like, I can't. That's the
yeah.
thing. Like
Sorry. I thought you were saying that
like,
as you.
It's like this unfair association that I think some people who love sports get.
Yeah.
Where like you get really deep in like the statistical analysis, and like I know how to analyze statistics, and but like I can't pull. I can roughly pull, like, I think this person scored about 20 points a game. This person had like 1,500 passing yards. But like I couldn't tell you. The thing I remember more about sports is stories, which I think is I think that's equally
as impressive to like remember the story of that. Like I think my equating you to Sheldon Cooper is just like, you're possibly the biggest sports nerd I know, and that's the best compliment I think I can give you.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
No, I like a stories is a big thing. I think I would assume, like, yeah, you could definitely, especially like your own personal sports stories you've told a lot of.
Oh yeah,
you love that.
Yeah. Well, and sports is so much about narrative, which is a thing I think people who don't admire sports in the same way that like I do, not to be like people don't get me.
People don't get sports,
but like a huge part of following sports is following, right? Like, in that you watch what's happening, you dissect, there are great sports stories that come out, and it's the whole like Moneyball, like how can you not be romantic about baseball sort of thing, right? Where like, and baseball's just the example, but like you end up loving athletes and following athletes their whole career, and people have really insane like arcs, and so that's what appeals to it more to me. How did we get here?
I don't know. This is definitely a sports podcast. I think that's the longest small talk I think this podcast is ever gonna have.
Okay,
but I do enjoy it. But I think I asked you, what's your coffee table book?
Oh,
and it's sport. It's sports facts books.
Yeah.
I
wish I had a cooler. Oh. If we have enough time for me to tangent, we could stay here all night.
Go ahead.
We live in the same place.
We do.
So, I don't know why that matters for how long
we live in. You know what? That's important information for the listeners.
Yeah, we. It's fun because we live in the same space, but we are not recording this where we live.
No. That'd be so cool. I would love to have all of the equipment that we're looking at right now in my room. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
I would love that.
That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah.
We're
also not going home with each other either. Like I have my car, and I'm sure you have your car.
Yeah, but I'd like you to give me a ride.
I can give you a ride.
Anyway.
And you were saying a thing.
I was saying a thing. This is because part of being a comedian is being self-aware.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know. But I'm going to be self-aware enough to say this because I know if anybody listens to this who knows me, they will go, "You are a bullshitter liar."
Really?
So one of my favorite books when I was a kid was it was a book called Flip Flop Fly Ball. That was like a coffee table.
That sounds kind of familiar.
And it was like these graphics about baseball specifically. I remember one of them was like all the dimensions of the outfields, like the dimensions of the diamond laid on top of each other from every stadium.
Oh, cool.
And it was really cool. And like that's nerd shit. Like I fully own up to that and be like, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, it's nerd shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we figured out what our coffee table books are. I like the coffee table
and
thing.
it only took us 15 minutes.
Only took us 15 minutes. Well, in podcast time 9, we did do some like preliminary testing.
Oh, I broke the fourth wall. My bad.
Oh, you broke the fourth. Let's go back. So, Owen, so you're a friend who happens to be you're my friend. I was about to say you're a friend who happens to be my comedian.
That is how it works sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, you are
a friend.
Yeah, you are my quote unquote friend who happens to be a quote unquote comedian. I want to, even though I know it, the listeners don't, and this is gonna be the majority of the podcast where like I'm listening.
You're asking me about stuff you already know about.
Yeah, absolutely. But also this is gonna be a big part of the podcast of like talking about stories and talking about like by stories I mean like your comedy story, I guess, which it starts at about the same time as me in terms of performing.
Yeah.
But if you want to touch on stuff before, other than like I knew stand-up existed, is there anything? Also, like I guess I think about this too. Like, what did draw you to join Ridiculum, the comedy club that we're in? And you're gonna hear that a million times in this entire series. But like, what drew you to that, or was there an interest or any kind of connection to comedy before you came to college?
I've always branded myself as like I'm a funny dude. Not saying that sounds.
It is weird to say it, but I think it's okay to.
But like
to know it.
I
you're funny.
I've always kind of had a knack for making people laugh. Honestly, so when I came to college, one of the members of the board of Ridiculum was Andrew Mister, who I assume is this going on one semester channels, or is this
this will be its own thing, but you'll recognize Andrew Mister's music was at the beginning of this episode.
Yes,
he wrote the theme song.
Good friend of the show, Andrew.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, and so he was my orientation counselor at Villanova, where we attend. Freshman year, which was 2021.
That's crazy.
Fall of 21. God.
Man.
And he, during like his spiel, and at a place like Villanova, I know a lot of places outside of Villanova's, the bigger school you get, the less orientation kind of matters. But at Villanova, you spend a good amount of time with your orientation counselor.
It's a big deal,
right?
and you make a good point. Sorry to interrupt, but you make a good point of like orientation. I didn't realize orientation wasn't as big of a deal in like other bigger colleges.
Yeah, no,
because you start college. We started college with a big deal orientation. I was like, I guess this is how it is.
Right, and some colleges do it in the summer. Like my sister, she went to Boston University, and like she went in June and got oriented,
which sounds bonkers to me.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mr. was my OC, which was wildly influential in ways I did not know at the time. And he, in like his spiel of kind of, introducing himself, and you hang around with Mr. for long enough, it's clear. Like he's an exuberant guy.
Yeah.
And he is charismatic.
Who
and
also has a talent to make people laugh.
Yeah, he has the juice.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. And so he I wish I could remember better how it actually went down, but I know at some point he was like, "Hey, like you should." I think he said it to me specifically, where he was really pitching it to me, because the other thing I remember about our OC group is that it was pretty like it didn't have much legs as a group.
Mm-hmm.
There were factions. There were like groups of people that would hang out, and I don't know. Like I haven't talked to anyone in my OC group in a while.
Ours was similar for the most part. At the moment, I think the two people, and one of them I don't talk to as much because she graduated already, but like only person that still pretty close in contact is Nate.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, but no, I get the idea though. Like orientation groups, honestly it's a rarity that an orientation group is so close knit, which is why it's super cool when it happens. But I've never seen it.
But so I was really banking on. I remember when I came to college because I've always kind of had a social angst, if you will. And I remember when I was
hell yeah, let's go.
You come to college and you're really nervous.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You're like it kind of, especially when you go to college really far away, which I do. You leave everything behind in a really radical way. And so I was so desperate to like find a place to fit, and like I like Mister. Like he's an affable guy. He's cool to hang out with. Like eventually towards the end of the week, me and another person from the OC group, like we would hang out with Mister and like during free time, and like we hung out around con because like you would have like weird 1 hour pockets of time, and they were like, you can go back to your room, and or like you can go hang out with other people, and I was like, I don't fucking have anybody else to hang out with, and I don't want to walk to South. But anyway, so at some point he pitched to me. He was like, you should try this. And then I think I swung by the involvement fair. The really crucial thing that led to it like actually happening, because I liked Mister, but I was incredibly nervous about the concept of improv.
Yeah.
Like that's scary.
I think it's a thing because you and I lead the club now, and it's a thing that we say to new people of like, we were terrified too, but we got good. That's real though.
It's real.
Like legitimately,
real.
much as passionate as I am about improv, 3 years ago, scared shitless about it.
Right.
Actually was really, really scary. I did hit the phone.
I was gonna say, I hope everybody heard you hitting the mic arm. But so the thing that kind of made it real, like it happened, was I had gotten a piece of advice from my dad before like they had left from kind of dropping me off and like before orientation started. And he was like, he's always looking out for me and knows me pretty well. And so his advice to me was, he was like, you should do one thing you love and one thing that you have no idea about. Like you should do one thing that you know is your bread and butter, and then you should have another thing that is completely new outside of your comfort zone.
That's awesome.
And so
that's great advice. Thanks, Mr. Hewitt.
It was great advice. It was really, I really appreciate it now, and I appreciated it then because I think another part about college, you realize your parents aren't out to get. Not that I ever thought my parents were out to get me, but
when you're outside the bubble, you realize, oh, they're just being parents.
Yeah, like they have your best interests at heart.
Yeah,
and I owe a lot to my parents. I don't. If you guys are listening right now, I'm
gonna send this to them. I'm sending this to Mister and your parents.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, my dad gave me that piece of advice and was like, and for a while I thought it was going to be a cappella. Because I wanted to do a cappella because I had done choir my final year of high school, and choir ended up being like much more of a a cappella type thing because it was COVID and there were like 5 of us and we couldn't all sing together. And anyway, so so that's kind of how it materialized. And I realized like I can't call back to when it really clicked, but I was like, at some point I was like, like I was thinking about it and I was like, well, yeah, like that'd be the out of my comfort zone thing. I knew I wanted to do the Villanovan. Yeah. Right. I wanted to be.
You stuck with that.
Involved with the paper, because that's kind of my thing. But I was like, I guess I can try improv. And then I went to the first practice. I think it was a Sunday practice.
It was a Sunday, yeah.
Because it was a Sunday after the involvement fair.
Though you and I have tried to figure this out. Did you go to the stand-up first, though? Or no?
I think I did. I think we went to stand-up first.
You and I both went, yeah.
Just because I thought, you're a freshman. You're a freshman in your second week of college. You don't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
Well, some people do.
Some people
are.
another tangent. Some people knew immediately.
Yeah. What the fuck? Some people.
Hey guys, did you get a flyer?
Yeah.
Well, who sent an email?
I think it's probably mostly people who know people who are also going to Nova. Like you and I both knew. Like nobody else from our high school class.
I knew
Nova.
no one. There was almost a chance. The guy that I was talking about, that in the same way that he's like a nerd about sports, he almost came here, and that was like the only chance that I maybe had at knowing someone. But I was also like, I wasn't then, but right now I feel like I'm okay with the fact that I didn't know anyone.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because I think
totally.
I'm not saying everyone does this, but I think I would have clung to the person, and that wouldn't have been great.
Yeah, I don't decry it. Like I don't grudge not having anybody with me. I think it was very good for me socially to like really step out there and be like, all right, this is all new people.
You have to.
Let's figure it out.
You have to go make a friend.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, I showed up to the first practice. I wish I had better, like, not better memories, meaning the quality of memories, but like how much I remember them.
Mm-hmm.
About the first practice, I remember like seeing Jay and like Pat and all these folks, and you just like I walked into the room and the chemistry was just like infectious.
Like
it was just such a and stand up was one thing. Like stand up is a very different animal, especially when we run it as a meeting, because it's kind of just you're sitting out there and you're throwing out ideas.
I will say, from the perspective of someone who's been at stand up since the beginning and now to here, I do think we've not to say that it was bad, but maybe it's just that now that I've been integrated into the club, it doesn't feel as, because coming into it initially, and like I probably feels like this year too, it's like you're right, we call it a meeting.
Right.
It's not practice.
It's not practice.
I mean, we do practice to stand up, but
Right.
like it's also because like it's as much as improv was the scarier thing because I was so mysterious, but also stand up was equally as scary because it was you write it, it better be funny.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's equally as scary, I think. But you're right. No, it is a different feel. But I think it feels different now that I've been immersed in the club for 3 years.
Right.
But you're right. The energy was crazy infectious.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
You walk like, and that's I think what, improv is one thing, but when you have the opportunity to hang out with a group of people that you really, really enjoy being around for 2 hours on a Sunday, like that's what keeps you coming back. And I do remember, my memory is not great, but like there were, I'm trying to dig back deep and like recall what my first
scene was.
I can't get there.
I can never.
I feel like it was in like a bell curve.
Bell curve?
Because I remember my big crutch at the beginning of like my time at improv was wrestling scenes, and I would just come in and be like, I'm going through a table or like whatever.
Yeah.
Which is fun, and I wish I did it more often now because I think kind of lowbrow of it. But I'm like, it's kind of awesome when you get to jump off a table.
Just recently this year, was it during a freeze or something? And
Yeah,
a wrestling scene happened, and we got really excited.
Excited
because it was a wrestling scene that was fun.
Right.
That
Right.
wasn't because I think we hadn't done it in a while, and so we didn't feel bad about it.
And eventually, I got to the point where I was doing it so frequently that like people knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And like
that's another layer of comedy.
They would change the scene before I could do anything, because there was also like a not a stereotype, but like a cliche that I'm like, oh, Owen's gonna like hurl himself at the ground and hurt himself.
I have guest specific questions coming later. That's
part of it.
Absolutely
Great.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like I'm trying to remember. It's hard to remember the first scene, but the first scene I remember, I think I was Peter Parker, and it was a bus stop, and that was really fun. And you're right. I don't have much of a memory about that beginning, which you think I would, because that was like a great. But the first practice wasn't the moment for me.
I think it was the moment.
It was for you,
because I looked at it and I really wish I could get back there, but I can't. But I remember kind of sitting like I went up for something and I just kind of and even before I would like volunteer to go up, I expected to be nervous, and then I wasn't, because I realized, and I think this is a big part of that helps me through like improv, because I'm not a particularly good public speaker. Like I get nervous in front of crowds a lot, but improv is it's so stress-free in that it's much harder to take blame for it if it doesn't go well. You can, like, you can set yourself up to do an improv scene well. And I'm sure if any professional improvisers out there listening to me right now, they're like, that's bullshit.
Yeah, like, what are you talking about?
You've got to claim responsibility for your scene. But there's also an aspect of, like, I didn't plan it. I didn't write it. And then the other part of it is, like, truly maybe it was easier for me because I already had a friendship with Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, you're just, like, making goofs with your friends.
Yeah.
Like, and that's all it is for 6 months, or not 6 months. I don't know.
2 semesters.
No, because I went to my like, you do a show and it's a little different.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But I mean, even when I would, like, I remember my first show, and I expected to be more nervous than I was, and then I got out on stage and I was fine. And it was like this weird phenomena of, like, I was just out there with my friends having a laugh. Like, it wasn't serious. There was nothing at stake. I was just kind of having fun, which is really liberating. Like, to do something where I think so much of what we do nowadays feels so high octane and high pressure. And improv's really nice because it's none of that. Like, it's mostly stakes free.
Yeah.
Right? If you do a bad improv scene, the world's not going to end. Right? You're not going to, fail or, like, do poorly in any measurable way. You've just done one thing and you move on from it.
I think the, like, one bad scene, I think a good way to think about it is because I think every time I talk about the way that improv is done, it's always a comparing to stand-up, because that's a good way to, like, balance it and kind of compare it. But the one bad scene that you did in the show doesn't mean that you're not that good at improv because it was a bad scene. Whereas, like, if you did a good 10, if you did like a 10-minute set and that whole thing went bad, that means that everything that you wrote for that is bad. So you got to go back to the drawing board. And I might not have a good philosophy on it. When I have Kevin on, he might have a better idea of, like, what that means.
What stand-up comedy looks like.
Yeah, but like, you're right. It's not the end of the world.
Improv, you just shake it off and move on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just go, that wasn't great. Move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of fun that way. Yeah, I think a big part of me being able to get into it was because, like, someone like me, I have no acting background. It's always a thing we joke about because both of my sisters were in, like, musicals in high school, and they wanted me to do it when I was in high school, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like my thing. And then I get to college, and I'm like, improv comedy.
Improv. It's like, no, but it's different. No, but it's not. It's interesting. It is a fun thing. Like, I think it'd be fun to go to like an improv comedy show in, like, Philly or something, and then, like, do a guessing game who had a theater background, because sometimes it's really obvious, and sometimes it's not.
No.
It's like honestly it's a crapshoot. You don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know. There is, like, there's I feel like a lot of the times I can tell.
You think you can tell?
I feel like I'd have a pretty good measure on it.
I think it's that maybe. Here's how I feel about it: is that I think you can definitely tell, but you might. I started a thought, and then I don't think it was going anywhere.
And I also think probably it's the case of, especially with professional improvisers, like 90% of them are going to have theater backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because where else do you pick up improv?
Yeah.
Right?
Unless it was in college.
In college.
Yeah.
And, like, your likelihood that you're going to join an improv club in college if you didn't do theater in high school is lower. I'm not saying it's zero. I do think it's an interesting thing about, going through our group, over the years. Like, we have a couple people that have backgrounds in theater.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that,
for the most part, it's the few people in college that were like, I'm gonna go do it.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's. It also might just depend on the troupe. I think some of the improv clubs that we see when we go, like, out of town or when we go to Georgetown, those are different. The makeup's different. I think maybe it might be different, and ours is, like, mostly, no, we started it here, and then there's also some where it's like, oh, we're all theater kids that decided to want to be funny.
Yeah, it is always interesting when we go to, like, Georgetown or we go to Collegiate downtown that, like, you can tell.
Yeah, the makeup's different.
Like, like we're probably not the most not theater kids, but there are certainly like I don't want to badmouth anybody.
No,
like,
I don't think it's a bad mouth. I think it's just a really good observation that
and
some improv troupes are really theatrical.
I've noticed always the teams that win.
Yeah,
like Drexel's really theatrical. And
maybe we should join.
They
theater.
win all the time. Maybe
we should join.
This is what I've run about it.
Absolutely, yeah. This is how we're gonna win collegiate. We join theater.
We join VSMT.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, and so like I'm trying to pick up to like on your journey. Although it's weird to talk about because like you say that, and that's the only perspective I don't have. And then for the most part, I'm like, yeah. And then you did improv with me for 3 years. And that's like it. Is there anything that you think I would be missing? Well, of course, I don't want to. I mean, the story is it just like you got into improv, and you kept doing it, kept performing. You really liked it. Is there anything like additional along that journey that you think is like, oh well, this also happened, and I started to get really into this? Is there a point? Or here's a good question too. Is like, because you said the first show that you did, it was like that was a really good like. Not turning point, but like it was like, oh, I was having fun and that was like really cool. But is there a I'm gonna try to do this with most of my guests. I think you need to recognize, and everyone else that I'm gonna have on here, you need to recognize that you're fucking good at improv.
Shut up.
You are. But was there like a moment that you did a show and you were like, oh, that was like good and like it was like shit.
Honestly,
that was great.
The one that listen. We're gonna get real for a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna get real close to the mic.
We're really close. If you don't land your voice right on it, you kind of miss like that.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm
go ahead.
Like, I think a lot of me cares immensely, or maybe not so much anymore. But at a certain point, a lot of me cared immensely about what people thought of me, and a lot of that identity was, do people think I'm funny? And a lot of the times, I go through my life and I go through my friends and I go, yeah, like that's the main reason we hang out, right? Is that's the thing we have in common, is that we make each other laugh. Like, kind of that's the only common thread in most of my life.
I think about that a lot. There's not everyone is a comedian, but in their friend group, everyone is a comedian.
Right.
Which is really cool.
That said.
Yes.
The first thing, because I'm trying to think back on it, the first show memory that I really have where I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. Let's go. Is Party Quirks.
Party Quirks.
Is doing Sonic and Party Quirks.
Sonic and Party Quirks.
Yeah, because I remember after the show, and like I remember doing it on stage, because like I'm gonna have to narrate what I was doing, which is never good.
Narrate it. This is how you explain the joke. We're gonna explain the joke.
Anyway, Party Quirks is an improv game, where a host of a party doesn't know what you are, and they have to guess.
And you were.
I was Sonic.
Yeah.
I was a Sonic. Becca was hosting, because it was close to Christmas.
Yeah.
Because she had the not hot cocoa.
Not hot cocoa.
And like a cookie, or like half a cookie. I don't know, it's not important. Anyway, my thing was Sonic. And I remember, like, you come in and you do the voice and you're like, hi, or fuck. It's harder. Sonic's a really tough one to do when you're not screaming.
Yeah.
But, like, if I back up from the mic a little bit.
Back up a little, yeah.
I can go, like, fucking.
It's all right. I'm not editing Jacob right now, so who cares about that fuck?
Gotta go fast. Like, it's like.
That was good.
Chili dogs. Like, is Sonic in the room with us right now?
He is.
There
he goes.
But yeah, like it's clear and obvious. It's hard to do a subdued Sonic, and so Becca, I think, knew what my deal was pretty easily. And so I remember I wasn't on stage for a long time, but I came in the Party Quirks early, and how Party Quirks work is that you don't leave until all 4 people are on the stage, and then you get guessed out. And I think I was the first one guessed out. But I remember it took a really long time to build, and I was just kind of standing there on the side, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I remembered I was like, wait, like I'm standing up there and I'm having these thoughts. And I'm like, wait, Sonic has like a distinctive thing he does when he's like idle. Like he has an idle animation. I should do that.
Yeah.
And so I did the thing. I did like the stomp on the ground and tap my wrist and like kind of stand there like a video game sprite. And it fucking killed.
People
like
laugh so hard.
People lost their shit.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And I think that was the moment where I was like, oh shit, like this is really cool. Like this is a lot of fun. And people come and up to me after the show and they're like, that was awesome. Like you killed it as Sonic. And like I fucking like that's amazing. Like to do something and have genuine praise for it and people be like, that was really, really funny is really cool. And I realize there's more to fulfillment than what other people think, but sometimes it's nice.
Sometimes it's a simple, oh, that felt good.
Yeah, and I remember other moments where people would be like, that was fucking awesome. Like you do something. The other one that sticks out, and of course this is an improv secret. That was a character I had premeditated, but Sad Tony Hawk at Georgetown. Which, and that was the first time we got to Georgetown, and we were a really unproven group at Georgetown. Those that don't know, Georgetown hosts an improv fest every year, and we got invited sophomore year.
Yeah.
And so it was a really unproven. We were like the new kids on the block,
basically. Yeah, we were new kids on the block, and also like incredibly nervous after watching the first night.
Oh my god,
dude!
Yeah.
The vibe. Let's talk about this because we never really did. It was unsaid. The vibe after we watched 4 great long form groups go was like, we should leave.
We're like rodeo clowns.
Yeah, it was
we
shouldn't.
Anyway, so
absolutely,
we settled in, and I think we opened.
We did. We opened the next night
because it was a short form night. It felt a lot better. And you're sitting in this like weird space at Georgetown, which is a place that holds a lot of weird connotations for me. But you're sitting in this room, and it's not a particularly big room, but it's fucking packed. Like they pack people in. Granted, a lot of it's because there are 8 improv groups there watching. Like
yeah.
But I mean it's packed, and we do a Dr. Know-It-All, and I'm hosting the Dr. Know-It-All, and I don't remember when I had conceptualized it. Like I think I just did it in practice one day, and I was like, what if Tony Hawk was really dejected? And so I did it, and it killed in practice. And they were like, you should do that in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And so I busted it out in Georgetown, and I don't remember what I said, but it's like, oh, my wife left me or like something. And I would be like, somebody would get done answering questions. I don't remember. I wish I could remember this punch specifically, because I remember someone, I feel like it was Mr. or like, although Mr. wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, Mr. wasn't.
Maybe it was like Pat. Yeah. Pat was on stage, and he was like, whatever he said fed really well. And I was like, I said something that really, really punched up. And then I went, kickflip, and like did like a shitty kickflip motion. And the other thing that I remember is that Georgetown stage is really, really scary because it's like 6 like
it's smaller than what we're used to.
Metal frames with padding.
Yeah.
Like a felted top.
It's
that are like 8 inches off the ground.
It's rickety and it's small.
It's rickety. And, like, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a big dude. Yeah. I'm a sizable guy. And so I jump off this thing, and I come down, and I'm like, please don't break, please don't break, please don't break. And it makes this, it's like, ka-chang! Like, it's a huge clattering noise. That was a shit ton of fun.
Yeah. And
basically, it went, and, it's a fucking dumb character. It's not technically impressive, but it was just this thing that I had thought of, and I was like, this is funny. This is a funny juxtaposition. And I remember it killing, and I remember feeling really good about myself. And then I remember immediately going outside and having an anxiety attack.
And in the next year?
No, that was that year. That was that year. That was like 2 months before I
you headed out. Yeah. I thought it happened again at Georgetown. Or did you just go to the bathroom?
What do you mean?
You had to go to the bathroom again this past year. And so, like, you missed half of the
No, that was another.
Oh, okay.
I was freaking out.
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
no. Georgetown is a really off-putting place for me.
Yeah. But also a really fun place to go to when we get to perform. No?
Yeah.
Well, you just told us that you had a lot of fun at Georgetown
I had
doing
a lot
Sad Tony Hawk.
I had a lot of fun because I made people laugh.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But, God, the social aspect of it makes me shit bricks.
It is a little scary.
That's fucking terrifying. I don't know. I think I'll be better at it this year if we go again.
Yeah.
Just because I think I'm a lot more free this year than I was last year or the year before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's some cool moments.
It is funny to see, because I think about like the folks that do improv in Georgetown, and like we were hanging out with the kids from Ohio State, and like I I feel like Virginia was there, and it's all these big state schools, and like those are huge schools, right? Like, there were a couple other like small private schools, like Duke was there, I think. And it's so funny because Georgetown is such a different setting than Villanova, and I feel like we pulled up to a house at Georgetown, and I was like, holy shit, it's like college in the movies. I was like, oh my God, this is what college feels like. Like, I hadn't had that experience ever. Like, I'd never been to a house party before Georgetown.
Yeah.
And then I like went to a house party, and I was like, I have to leave.
We gotta get out of here.
We gotta get out of here.
Also, especially the first night too, after we had watched 4 awesome, and then none of us felt good.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what I think the first night, because Mr. was there.
He wasn't in the club.
He wasn't in the club.
He had graduated.
I remember what was the memory? Mr. had driven out to like hang out with us. And he was there. And like I think it was me and Justin were like, we gotta get out of here.
You and Justin, I remember that specifically.
So we went with Mr. to Wawa somewhere in D.C. It was in Georgetown. We didn't go far, but and we got food.
Yeah.
So
and we stayed and we got drunk. that was fun.
Yeah, and the rest of us went back to our Airbnb.
Yeah.
But that was a long Georgetown tangent.
That was a long George tangent.
That's also, I feel like that's part of comedy, right? Is the fact that so many people who have that performance sort of skill, for lack of a better word, like so many people, it's not every person, but I feel like there are so many people I know in this world who like love getting on stage, love doing that, and then have real challenges with like the social aspect of things. And I don't want to overcompensate with myself. I'm fairly socially literate. Like I have a decent grip on it, but it's just sometimes it's so hard. And like I don't know, I'm less of an introvert than I used to be, but I am really like not that, like, I don't know. I'm not that outgoing, which I think sometimes worked to my detriment, but I think that's part of the comedy world, is that you have such a broad range of, you have people like Noel in this club who
complete opposite.
He's the most outgoing person on this earth.
It does feel like
he could talk to a rock for an hour.
Literally,
right?
Yeah. I don't want to call you the end of our social spectrum, but like you did say, you're a pretty introverted person. Noel, complete opposite.
Yeah,
absolutely,
total other end.
At least seemingly, like so out there.
And so it's funny, and it's one of the things I love about improv is that you just have all different personality types, all different, backgrounds, all different kinds of people coming together and making something. Like, it's really kind of cool when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because I think with a lot of organizations preach like, oh, you need person with personality type A and people with personality type B, and but like not really, because like most of leadership of places and like most of staff of places, like you get very type A people, not specifically type A, but like you get people who fit together. Improv doesn't work if you don't have the full spectrum of humanity.
If we had like for a show, if we had like 7 Owens or 7 Knowles or 7 Jacobs,
it'd be disastrous.
It'd be horrible.
Yeah, it would make no sense.
Well, people would get tired of the same kind of character or the same kind of comedy.
You need the variety, and I truly feel like it's like one of the few last bastions of like truly variety of perspective and personality, in that there are all sorts of different people that have all different sorts of archetypes and like traits, and they all work together to make cool stuff.
Yeah, that's what's super cool about comedy. That's great. So we talk about your comedy journey, but I want to talk you specifically as a performer. We
didn't talk about the journey much. We talked about some chemo.
I'm still trying to figure out if I want to talk about the journey specifically. well, no, not yours, but like in general, just because like this would be easier for me to ask about the journey if I was talking to like someone I did improv with once at like a local theater.
No, I mean, fucking our journeys are so intertwined.
It's literally almost the same.
Like we are,
as in where we were.
Yeah, like we're fucking we've done improv together for our entire improv lives.
Yeah, and great
Right.
transition to this first question.
Oh boy.
actually.
Okay.
You know, you and I joined, went to the same first improv practice, have been doing it for the most part together for all of college. And like, I don't know, like regarding being in a comedic duo, which I think even though sometimes we're not in scenes together, or like sometimes I have a really good moment with Justin, or you can have a really good moment with like 2 other people in the club. Uh, I'd say that anyone who is either been in the club for a little bit or even new people coming in now, a good observation probably could be that you and I at times can be a good comedic duo and we cling to each other. So, like, what would you say are like the benefits that like arise from playing on stage with each other so often, and like if any, do you think? Because I'm fully open to hearing about any like drawbacks that you might also think might exist.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest benefit of it is just the level of comfort we have with each other, where we really have, we preach a lot. Improv is about trust, right? Like you have to trust yourself.
If you don't, it's a static scene.
You're
Nothing happens.
Not gonna do well.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, and like I've run into that trouble too, where like you have trouble trusting a scene partner, and you're like, this isn't gonna go well, right? And you start to get nervous about it. But like when we're on, like I've never once been like, oh, I'm in a scene with Jacob, I hope it doesn't go poorly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or I hope it doesn't go poorly.
God, I hope it doesn't do good.
So there's a really big part of it, I think, that is the fact that we've done it so many times, where it's just like, I know this will be like, it won't be disastrous.
Yeah.
I know it'll be fine, great, insert whatever adjective you want. It won't be disastrous. Like, we'll get through it. The other aspect of it that I really love is that we know how to get each other. Right? Like, we know what makes the other laugh.
No, sometimes when we're performing, and I think it was a mix of both. When you and I did a long form show together where you and I played every character. It was a middle edition of Schwartz. And in that show, I can think of multiple instances, both where I was trying really hard to make sure we had a really good technical scene going down. We were hitting the beats that we needed to. We were trying to hit the story points. And I also, in every scene and also in that show, I'm like, I can't wait to break them. I'm gonna break them so hard.
I have never once thought about a story point.
You never?
I only think about jokes.
So you're the one that breaks, and I'm the one that's like, fuck, we need to get going.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I do. I'm like, I need to break this guy so bad.
Right.
It's not.
I'm not particularly hard to break.
No, I was gonna say I don't have the perspective of like what it's like to break me in a scene, but I gotta say you're probably the best person. It is the most the most joyful experience to break you during a scene, because it feels like sometimes, and I'm not discrediting like audience laughter, but sometimes it feels better than the audience laughing at my joke.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I break so easy.
Easy.
I'm so fucking bad at it. It's the one part where I'm like, oh, I wish I had an actor's background, because if something's funny, I'm gonna laugh at it. Like, and it doesn't even have to be that funny. I get taken out. I'm like, oh, a joke.
That's funny.
Like, and I have trouble keeping it together. Which technically maybe not sound, but
yeah.
I think it's fun. And I think a big part of improv is that you should be having fun while you're up there.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be more fun for your audience if you're having fun while you're up there.
That might be, not to psychoanalyze you real quick, but that might be why maybe you were super apprehensive to do like theater and stuff, and why you're like having so much fun with improv. Because if you mess up in theater,
it's so serious.
People might laugh at me. I'm not saying that theater can't be funny. There's absolutely I think there's some hilarious plays or musicals and stuff. But
totally.
But if you do mess up, it isn't like we'll get them next time. It's like you need to remember your lines, or you need to.
Also, you can't. Well, I guess you can. That's kind of where improv comes from. I'm like, you can't justify yourself out of it.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can try to, but also like you got to get yourself back to a point in the script.
You got to go. Oh shit, I'm off script.
Let's
get back on script.
Move our way, and sometimes just skip a whole thing.
Yeah.
No, I think that might be why you were more apprehensive about it, and why you clung so easily to improv, because it's like mistakes are so welcome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I still remember one of my favorite things of all time, and I don't think was it in a show. I don't think it was in a show. I think it was in practice. Jay Dolan, who is the funniest man alive.
He's the best improviser I've met. Legitimately.
One time I was in a scene and I was like, I wish I could. I had kids or something like that. I think it was I don't remember quite what it was, but I had referenced earlier that I had like a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and then I like throwaway line said something about like, oh, my kids will love this or like whatever.
Yeah.
And Jay was like, all three of them, and like he just like took off sprint. Like it was like I had like, I don't know, baked a pie and was like carrying it back home, and like Jay ran in front of me and was like, I'll be taking that, and ran away.
Took the whole scene.
Like took the whole scene over, and like, but it was fucking hilarious. Like it was so funny that I had made this verbal gaffe, and Jay just justified it.
This is the one where he then started playing 3 of your
Yeah,
kids?
he played my 3 kids.
Jay Dolan is the only one. God,
Oh, it was a Sit Stand Kneel.
Was it? Oh, no, I thought it was an Oscar winning.
Oh no, it was Oscar. You're right. You're right.
Because whoever was calling it kept Oscar winning moment like 3 different Jays.
Yeah. you had to Oscar winning moment Jay by character.
Which was like so. I think that's still the only time I've seen, unless it's like a long form thing where it's like a middle edition Schwartz, or it's like you're having to like jump back and forth to play different characters. Only time I've seen it happen in a short form scene, someone playing multiple characters that happen to be on the stage at the same time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was awesome, and he didn't do it in a way that was like, oh, that was so technically bad, but we laughed so hard at it anyway.
No, he just
did it in the most perfect way.
He just did it.
God, I'd love to get him on because I haven't seen him in so long. So
I haven't seen him in forever.
I'd love to talk to him.
I haven't
Also,
seen him in
that'd be
forever.
super great.
If you get him on, I just want to talk.
You want to come watch?
Yeah,
just come look at him while he's doing it. Yeah.
What was the question?
Us as a comedian. You were talking about breaking.
The drawback. The drawback.
Yeah, talk about drawbacks because I do want to say that like I do think you and I still recognize that there are some, and it's not like we think we're perfect.
Well, and I think the drawback is a lot of the times you fall into a rut.
Yeah.
Right. When you know what's going to push the other person's buttons the right way, you do it the same way every time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times it doesn't, like, you're not innovating. Not that innovation is wildly important, but you know. I think, once again, if you're working on the thesis of the audience is having more fun if you're having fun, you're not going to have fun if you're doing the same thing every time you get up on stage.
Yeah.
Right? You may have fun the first 5 times you get up and do it, first 10 times even. But eventually you're going to go, I've done this already. And, like, it's not as funny anymore.
Yeah. I'd also say, I think not a good drawback, but a good drawback to point to, like something to point to is like, and this is in the context less of a scene and more of like the club. I think in our early days when you and I had that first discovery of like, oh, hey, it's Jacob and Owen and we're going to be doing lots of stuff. We got up to do scenes together constantly.
Oh yeah.
Which is okay. And it's honestly, as 2 people who are now like leading the club, it's super cool to see like duos start to form.
To have people who have chemistry. I remember I would like get up for a scene and I'd,
look
like,
at me.
look at you and be like, are you gonna get up for this scene? And like either you would follow me, that was most of the time.
Yeah,
we
most
would
of the
go
time.
up together, or like you would sit back down.
Yeah.
Or
Or if it was like if you started to, I would either notice you, and I think I did this too. If I started to get up and then I saw that the amount of people got up as well that Owen wasn't going to be able to, I was like, you guys
we can wait.
Which
I'd rather run it with Jacob.
Which is a drawback, I think, and I think we've gotten out of that, which is good. I think for the most part, you and I get out of it pretty well.
Yeah, and I think we've been forced to now that we're more experienced.
And now that we have to teach instead of just play.
We're kind of expected to
play with anyone.
Yeah, we kind of have to be the authorities.
Yeah.
So I think we've gotten out of it a little bit. But like, think about it, man. We started today's practice.
We did.
Like, we did the first game of
which
today's
is like
practice.
Also it's not always a bad thing.
No, not at all.
I think you and I from starting from when we would get up for every fucking game only together to now, I think we found a good balance of when it's like you and I need to be getting up now.
Totally.
And then it's like you should be going with that new person.
But that's also an advantage, especially when you're getting into it and you're not as confident in it, that you have somebody you feel comfortable in, because comfort is such a huge aspect of it. And you know, even from our first couple of scenes, I was like, oh, I can trust this dude. Like, this guy is gonna support what I do.
Yeah, even if it's dumb as
even
shit.
if it's fucking stupid.
So dumb. Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel the same way. Yeah, I think honestly, I think if we hadn't, I think it would be an issue if at this point we couldn't name drawbacks, because then I think you and I would be like these egomaniacs that were like, we do every scene together.
We only improv with each other.
Only improv with each other. No more ridiculous shows. Only Marscola and Hewitt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have another, I guess I don't really want to necessarily, I guess I was going to skip this question. It's honestly not that big of a question, but like, I just, for a moment, let's briefly talk about what you mentioned earlier of like, you're a very physical comedian, especially especially when on stage. That's when you do it.
Right.
But you're a very physical comedian. It's less now. It was a big thing freshman and sophomore year.
Right.
Like the whole thing was like, Owen gets in a scene. Let's all be ready to call an ambulance. And
let's have bandages at the ready.
yeah. Which is, when that happened, because it seemed like you always enjoyed it when people are like, "Oh no," and you were like laughing.
Oh yeah, I fucking ate it up.
But you ate it up. But also, like, was there ever a moment where you're like, "Oh no, I made myself into the guy that hurts himself"?
I mean, not in that way. Like, if that's my niche, like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But
did you ever fear for your safety?
No, I never feared for my safety. I'm good at falling down,
Yeah.
although I may have concussed myself once.
There's the one time.
I'm not sure.
And Jill was
Jill
horrified.
Jill was so scared.
I think Jill wanted to stop practice.
Oh,
actually.
yeah,
she wouldn't let us. She was like, I don't really want to do another.
I remember, because there's video of this incident. And every time every once in a while I find it again and I watch it and I go, holy shit. But then I also go, like, you look at Jill and she's like throwing her hands up and like shocked face, like scared as shit.
And now you and I have context for that, because Jill was a leader of the club.
Oh yeah,
who watched. Yeah. And what I mean by that is like not context. Like, oh, why was she worried? She was obviously worried. If you and I saw an Owen Hewitt walking to practice the other day,
if we saw a freshman who context, the scene was trampoline.
That's it.
It was the location was trampoline park.
Yeah,
and like I was bouncing off trampolines on the wall. And what happens when you bounce off trampolines on the wall and you commit to it really hard is that you kind of throw yourself backwards on a very horizontally,
and you give yourself whiplash and a concussion.
Yeah, and you bang your head against the Tolentine floor really hard.
And the carpet's not soft.
The carpet's really thin.
And it's harder than tile.
Anywho's,
if we saw one of those.
We'd shit bricks.
I would feel like a piece of shit, actually, because I'd be like, I let this happen in my club.
Yeah.
So I can imagine why Jill was horrified.
And I remember she was like, "You okay?" And I was like, "I'm good."
Of course.
And then I did it 3 more times because you had to. Because it was a director. It's a director. Anyway, yeah. I think the reason it sort of like. In that sort of audience-pleasing way that I was talking about earlier, like, I knew it got a big laugh. I don't remember the first time that I threw my body on the floor. Like, I don't remember that. But, like, I remember it got a big laugh, and I went, oh, I can do this more often. Like, I was like, oh, I can throw myself on the ground all the time. And, like, basically, for a certain amount of time, it was, like, all I wanted to do because I knew it would get the laugh.
Yeah.
And I think eventually
you realized
I try and avoid highbrow talk about improv because I really think it's, for the most part, not super productive.
Yeah, but also if you're going to do it, this is the place to do it. Go ahead.
Like, I think I realized I was like, okay, this is a little bit of a crutch.
Yeah.
Like, you become a little bit predictable and it's getting less and less funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I learned to reserve it better. But like, now I think about it, I'm like, I want to do physical shit again. Like, I haven't fallen on the ground in a scene in a long time. Anyways, there's a medium spot for it, but I do think it's funny. Like, I think, it's very slapstick, but it's unexpected, and like another big part of improv is committing as hard as you can. And what says you're committing harder than risking life and limb?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, it was like because and. If I hadn't have been so close and been like your friend, I would have been like, "Oh, I'm worried for Owen." But I was kind of an enabler. I was like,
"Oh yeah,
let's go."
I never seriously hurt myself.
He never did, but we always thought it happened.
I maintain that.
Absolutely.
No, I never seriously hurt myself.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end, and this is
what the fuck?
I know, right?
You told me I'd be hunting for 8 hours.
Well, you will be. I'm leaving soon.
Oh, I get to do it solo?
The episode does end, but you stay here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but before you sit here for a good 8 hours, I'm going to ask this at the end of every episode, and so I guess you kind of just did see it, but like, what's like a comedy bread and butter of yours? Let's unless if you can think of something besides what we just talked about,
fuck.
that you
let me
I wouldn't call it
recently.
I wouldn't call it a crutch. Yeah, talk about recently. Like, I wouldn't call it a crutch, but what's the thing that you're like, I love getting into this? What's like I
So,
love doing this.
I love this is the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm going to use Jay as an example again because he's really good at it. But there are also like comedians that do it really well. In like a stand-up way, I think John Mulaney does it pretty well. But I'm trying to think. Colin Mockery on Whose Line?
Yeah,
he does this really well. Being the straight man, not, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like being the serious,
being
character,
the normal character.
that is so well equipped to deal with all of the fucking insane shit that happens around them. Like, and I referenced Jay because Jay was amazing at it.
Jay was so good at that.
And he would be like, you know, you'd come into a scene and there would be like a 3-headed lion, and be like, I have a package for the 3-headed lion. Like, he would be like, like he'd just be like totally accepted of. And so I like doing that myself, and I get a good kick out of it. And I like kind of doing the thing, and I remember Jay would do it sometimes too, where you'd be like, you'd really hammer home how weird it was. Like, you would be like,
by justifying it as normal.
Right.
No, it's normal that you're pooping on my floor.
Of course, you shouldn't poop anywhere else. Right.
It's
like,
so good.
And doing it in that way is awesome, and it always makes me like laugh. And I love being I like being, I don't know, I like being kind of that straight-faced character. I also like doing impressions.
Impressions is one.
Like, I like doing impressions.
Yeah.
Those are my two things where I'm like, if I'm in a like a true scene with somebody else, I'm gonna be like, oh, of course, like, you know, of course it's never rained. Like, you know, I mean, rain is only in the biblical foretold.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah, which is, I think, that's you say that as your bread and butter. That's also, I'd say, as an improviser, probably like one of the best qualities, is because it's a form of yes-anding that's not just, yeah, sure.
Right.
Because it's like it's because it's the adding on to it, and it's the, yeah, and another funny thing that amplifies what you say.
Right, yeah, totally, of course.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that's awesome. This has been the first episode.
Thank you so much for having me on Talk To It today.
Oh. my brain short-circuited. That was really fun. Yeah,
it's really nice to meet you, Joe Rogan.
Nice to meet you, yeah. You'll never be on again. Yeah.
Fuck.
I know.
I blew it.
No, thank you so much for being the test dummy on this insane ride of a podcast. I hope whoever's listening enjoyed what we had to say. Maybe Owen will come back on again, but that's after I've cycled through all of my friends, which won't take very long.
He's got like 2 other friends.
I got like 2 other friends.
He's got like 2 other friends.
Can I see you in like a few weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll clear some space on the calendar.
Well, this has been My Friends the Comedians. I want to say thank you to our guest, Owen Hewitt. I want to also say thank you to Andrew Mister for the theme song of this podcast, Cruisin'.
I want to say thank you to Andrew Mister for making me do improv.
I want to say thank you to Andrew Andrew
in
Mister.
In a very weird way, not only would the theme song of this podcast not exist if
without him,
the whole fucking podcast wouldn't exist without Mister.
Agreed, because I don't know if I think, because as much as like I still maybe would have. Well, no, you're right. Shit, he made the club.
Yeah,
that's. I was trying to walk my way to where you were saying. No, you're right. I'd like to thank Andrew Mister for everything.
Thank you, Mister. Talk to you soon. Love you, baby.
Talk to you soon. Good seeing you.
Bye bye.
Yeah, but thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to Andrew for the theme song of this podcast, Cruisin'. And my name is Jacob Marscola, reminding you to laugh, especially when it's funny.